Welcome to another video from EarnPed.com. I'm Stevie B. Happy to have you all with me today. So as you guys will notice, I'm just banging out video after video after video because I know that my work schedule is crazy. I know that it's taking a lot of my time, and I want to be sure and get as much content out there for you guys as possible to help you guys play smarter, not harder. So I apologize if what I'm doing on screen is just getting a little bit redundant because I know I'm just out here shooting a ton of monkeys, but it's more about what the content is about that I'm saying than anything, and I know most of you usually have me running in the background anyway. So today I am on Next Island, and I'm going to be talking specifically about ancient Greece shares, and that might seem quite odd given the fact that I've never really been a huge fan of them, but stick with me and you guys will figure it out as I go. So I am 34 years old. I'm shooting this video on August 8th, 2022, and I will turn 35 in December. I grew up in a family of home builders, so I did not realize my life was weird. You know, I started my first business when I was like 12 years old. I was self-employed all through high school and afterward, and I just did not realize all the things that were weird about my life. If you spent the night at my grandfather's house, you got up at 4 a.m., Grandma made pancakes, and you were on the construction site at 5:30 on Saturday morning to be sure the framers were there, or the carpenters, or the concrete layers. And I remember when I was like 11 or 12 years old, something like that, I was over at my grandfather's house, and there was this guy, not much older than me, that was in his office. I get motioned in there, and this guy picks up a magazine, signs it, and hands it to me. I was like, cool, who are you? He's like, I'm Jason White. I was like, cool, who are you? He's like, I'm the quarterback at OU. I just won the Heisman Trophy. I was like, cool, why'd you sign this magazine and hand it to me? It was a Sports Illustrated, and he was on the cover. Obviously, I'm not a big sports guy, but Jason White's father has a concrete company, and they did a lot of our concrete work for years. So it was stuff like that that I just didn't realize it was weird. On my 17th birthday, my bank called me, and me and my girlfriend went to the bank. Notice I said 17, not 18. And the president of the bank had my first credit card waiting for me on his desk. Weird, right? Yeah, I didn't know that. And then my girlfriend looks at me, she's like, most people's bank don't call to wish them a happy birthday and have them come pick up their first credit card at 17. It was stuff like that I didn't realize was weird. And I'm very honored that I got to have those experiences, that my family was involved in the industry from such a young age, because it gave me a lot of skills that you can't acquire from reading a book, that you can't acquire unless you've spent a lifetime doing something and growing up around something, and it's just like breathing to you. It's one of those things that it can't be taught. It's just got to be something that soaks into your blood. Much of it anyway. But the reason I say that, why that's important to today's topic, is I remember as a kid, very, very young, going to the bank, and I had a savings account. And when I put money in my savings account, every month I would get a statement in the mail, and I would open it up, and I would see how much money I would put in, and then I would see how much money the bank had paid me just for having my money on deposit. And it was never a massive amount. It might be 20 cents here, 40 cents there, $1.50 here, $6 there. But I was actually getting paid by the bank just to have an account and just to have my money in that account. And what is horrifying to me is that I'm 34 years old. Most of the people who have made their career on Wall Street, most of the people that are running the stock market and the trading floors and all these big investment banks, they don't remember this. They don't remember a time when banks paid you an interest rate on your savings account or on your checking account. And usually what it was is, if you had money in your savings, they would pay you. In your checking, they would not. So you would have a savings and a checking. You would keep your money in your savings, then you would transfer it to your checking as your checking account needed replenishing. And it's horrifying they don't realize this, because this goes to a very central point of banking in the United States. We use a fractional banking system, meaning the bank can actually loan out money depending on how much money it has on deposit. It doesn't have to loan out $1 because it has a dollar on deposit. The bank may be allowed to loan out $5 because it has $1 on deposit. And this becomes important because mortgage rates historically are not 2 or 3%. Historically, the average mortgage rate is like 6.5 to 7.25. That would be considered quote unquote normal if you look at history over the long haul. And mortgage rates have been so low for so long. We're talking 3.5%, all the way back from like 2008 onward, that it's been the better part of a decade and a half since we've seen normal interest rates. It's been the better part of 15 to 16 years since banking in this country has worked as it was intended to do, as it has always, quote unquote, normally worked. And now what we're facing is we're facing a time in this country where we're dealing with not just inflation, but arguably horrendous amounts of inflation. People are complaining about their electric bills going up, their heating and air bills going up. Obviously, gas is through the roof. The economy is more or less in the shambles. I was with a group of people the other day, and they all have bachelor's degrees, none of which are anywhere near economics. And they were all trying to convince me that now was the best possible time to buy a house because people are offering $20,000 to $30,000 over list price sight unseen. And I had to try and explain to them, well, one of us has been in this business literally their entire life, and I was not born in 1979, so I do not remember the Carter administration, but I promise you my family does. My grandfather was building houses, and he was paying 20 to 23% interest rates on the loans he was getting. Very, very few home builders survived that. It took almost everybody in the real estate market out completely and just destroyed everybody. And everything about this economy reminds me of the Jimmy Carter era. I don't think we're going to see interest rates from the Federal Reserve go up, a few points. I think we're going to see interest rates on mortgages are going to land in the 12, 13, 14% range. I'm talking to my people at closing companies and title companies, and they're telling me they're booking loans right now at 6.5%. And they don't see it slowing down. They think those interest rates are just going to keep on going up. Well, the reason this applies in game is one of the best kept secrets of Entropia for the past several years has been the fact that when you buy a share, when you buy a deed, regardless of whether it's a CLD, Calypso land deed, or whether it's an ancient Greece share or a Crystal Palace share or a New Treasure Island share, or an Arcadia Underground deed or an Arcadia Moon deed, what you're essentially doing is, for the past couple of years, you have been able to replicate the normalcy that we should have seen in the banking system. Instead of just having your money in savings earning you nothing, you were essentially using your savings to quote-unquote create income. Now, here's the problem I've always had with savings. You're always going to have some amount of inflation. So if you take $1 and stick it under your pillow, a year from now, it's not going to have $1 worth of buying power. It might only have 97 cents worth of buying power. So no, that interest from those bank accounts back in the day, it was never going to really get you anywhere. It was just essentially going to help you not lose to inflation. Now we're in a situation where we're seeing 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14% inflation numbers coming out. Now Americans are going to have to start looking for ways to either invest their savings or get into situations where their savings is not under the pillow losing its buying power day by day. Because you're not going to stick $1 under your pillow and wake up a year from now and it's able to buy 97 cents worth of goods. You're going to wake up a year from now and that dollar is going to buy 76 cents worth of goods at this rate. So those of us who have played Entropia are a little bit ahead of the curve on this, because we are a little bit more used to sticking our savings or our excess funds into shares and deeds and having it generate that passive income. Hopefully working on building a snowball where you take that passive income and then you're able to get another share, another deed. Take the passive income, another share, another deed. And I think that long term, especially with the way the economy is going, not just in the US but worldwide, this is going to be something that is going to attract people to Entropia for two reasons. It's going to be better than a lot of the alternatives that are going to be out there, and it's an alternative that is out there right now, today. Not something they got to wait 6 months for it to materialize. Also, because Entropia does something unique that a bank account cannot. Even if there's a bank account that can offer you the same rate of return you would get by investing on deeds or shares in game, the bank account is only going to give you that. There is no more. There is no extra benefit. Whereas in game, you do have an extra benefit. Even if you're a sweater, you can sweat, hopefully save up enough that you're able to market it, and you may very well be able to sell enough to get an Ancient Greece share, or a Crystal Palace share, or some other like New Treasure Island share. I know they're not the most expensive things in game, but that will let you slowly build your snowball. And you can't build a snowball with a savings account. You can with Entropia and with shares. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of Ancient Greek shares, even though I think that Crystal Palace shares are a superior share in virtually every way, it is still a better alternative than sticking the money under your pillow. It is still a better alternative than sticking it into a bank account that pays you nothing. And when we take the snowball effect into account, where not only can we be earning that rate of return, but also knowing there's things we can do in game, even free-to-play things, that will allow us to slowly acquire more and more of those shares and build a bigger and bigger snowball, I think this is going to be very, very important moving forward. And again, am I a huge fan of the AG shares? Not really, because of several reasons, most of which you guys know. But it's better than doing some of those alternatives, especially if you're somebody who already is prone to play a game like Entropia Universe. Maybe you're just looking for the right game. Maybe the right game just hasn't come along yet, and maybe this is one of those factors that's helping you decide, well, I'm not totally against depositing, I am just against losing my butt. Nothing's to say you can't deposit, use all the money for shares, and then be free to play the rest of the time. There are people who do that. I know several of them, and they're perfectly happy with their playstyle and what they do. They might not be the most active players in game, but it works for them, and that's what really matters. That's what allows them to keep having fun and keep enjoying Entropia. So I think what we're going to see is over the next 12 to 18 months, a lot of people are suddenly going to be in a position where they have to realize that the world they have known their entire adult lives is not normal. Because things haven't been normal from an economic standpoint in almost 20 years now. So if you're pretty much under the age of 40, you haven't really known normal as an adult. And that's going to require people to make changes. Well, I know some people, they go, well, I just have to use less. I have to use less water. I have to use less electricity. I have to lower my insurance premiums. And there's nothing wrong with that, except for it's a temporary stop loss. It's a temporary Band-Aid. To really, truly deal with the kind of economic change we're talking about, the kind of paradigm shift we're talking about, you have to find ways to increase your income. You have to increase your financial literacy quite quickly. I've always been a pretty vocal and outspoken person against Dave Ramsey, because Dave Ramsey's system doesn't really get you anywhere. It just makes you more stupid. Budget, put money in envelopes. That's not financial literacy. That's just taking people who are financially illiterate and helping them organize their illiteracy. That doesn't really get you anywhere. It's going to help you fall further behind more than anything. There's a lot of people who have shows on TV where they like to tout, different stocks for the day. And I look at some of the stocks that they tout and some of the ways they talk about the economy, and they act like the economy is bulletproof. And it's not. Whenever people start telling me that there is a new normal or the rules no longer apply, I get very, very scared. And I've heard that a lot lately. I can tell you right now, I am betting that come next April, there is going to be a pretty big meltdown in the real estate market, in the economy, in the banking sector. And I think that what we're going to see is a lot of people that bought houses over the past 4, 5, 6, 7 years never should have been homeowners. And there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be in big trouble. If you guys think there was a foreclosure crisis back in 2007, 2008 with subprime mortgages and the adjustable rate mortgages, wait until you see interest rates go to 7, 8, 9%, and people realize that they paid $40, $50, $60,000 over market value for a house that was worth 70% of what the asking price was. There are houses right now in Oklahoma City, nice houses that are selling for $300,000 that were listed at $265,000 that a year from now will not be worth $200,000. I guarantee it. And there is going to be an entirely new wave of foreclosures in this country. There's going to be a totally new wave of the way everything works. The way people know life is going right out the window because it hasn't been normal. That's the big takeaway. So I think we have a couple of things that really benefited us as Entropia players. Number one is the fact that we can buy shares, even if it's ancient Greece, even if it's New Treasure Island, even if it's not Crystal Palace. We can buy shares that generate that income and have that bonus opportunity that we can use in the game to create a snowball. That's going to give us a huge advantage over people who only have the option of putting the money under their bed or being subservient to the interest rate that the banks are offering on their checking or on their CDs or whatever. And number two is that by knowing this in advance, we haven't just created a hobby. We've created a hobby that gives us a chance at having a side hustle, secondary income. And that was a big factor when I chose Entropia, is I needed a hobby, and I knew my hobby was not going to generate enough income to justify the time I would spend on it. But I needed a way to relax, a way to kick loose, a hobby to, interest me and keep my mind busy without it having to be work, but also that could generate some amount of income, some amount of side hustle. So I think there is an opportunity for Entropia to get a lot of new players the more in the toilet the economy goes. I really see that, and I see the share system being a big part of that. One of the reasons I specifically highlight the ancient Greece shares is the ancient Greece shares have an advantage that the New Treasure Island shares do not have. I don't think they're as good as the Crystal Palace shares. However, the ancient Greece shares are tied directly to ancient Greece, and the Next Island development team has done an amazing job over the past 18 to 24 months in making Next Island in ancient Greece a go-to destination that players want to be, where players want to do missions, where they want to grind, where they're excited about new content. And the more the Next Island development team continues to focus on this, the more valuable those ancient Greece shares are going to become. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to magically double in price tomorrow. Doesn't mean the income is suddenly going to skyrocket every week after this week. But as the Next Island development team continues to make those incremental improvements to Next Island, to ancient Greece, continues to make those incremental new content releases to Next Island, to ancient Greece, the Next Island shares do have the long-term chance of being something that could eventually compete with Crystal Palace shares. Treasure Island shares do not have that. The only thing Treasure Island shares have going for them at all is Mindark essentially spawned 2 mobs there that formerly only spawned in Foma. That is it. And whenever new Treasure Island shares were announced, there was a little footnote that said, we might have these creatures there, we might not. Had they not put those 2 creatures there, New Treasure Island would generate practically 0 revenue. Practically 0, because there's always other alternatives, and the mob list was not that impressive to begin with. And there was no guarantee Mindark would actually release those 2 mobs on New Treasure Island. New Treasure Island has been pretty much the giant bust I said it would be from the get-go. I pretty much called that one correctly, as I called the Ancient Greece shares correctly, as I called the Crystal Palace shares correctly, because, again, I'm not a complete twit. People might not like me, people might not agree with me on everything, but believe it or not, I am right pretty close to most of the time. So, that being said, I think Ancient Greece shares don't get enough credit from the perspective of they do have utility when we look at game versus real world, and they do have something unique. They have the Next Island development team behind them. So if Next Island will continue to listen to players, continue to look at what works and what doesn't, continue to make those improvements that have taken this from a dead planet nobody wanted to come to one of the better destinations in the universe to make a second home out of, long term, the ancient Greece shares have the potential to really be something special, to really have some good value and some good income behind them. No, I don't think it's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months. This is something that is going to take years to make happen. But it's those incremental changes that can potentially eventually get us there. So I'm going to leave that right there for now. I know there's a lot to unpack in that, not only about the future of ancient Greece shares and the history of banking and finance and where the economy is going. There's many, many things that you can draw conclusions from this video. But the big takeaway I want you guys to have is that we do have an edge compared to most people because of shares like the ancient Greek share system. We have a way to create a snowball. We have a way to generate passive income with that money that we just have laying around. And think of all the different ways that may really be able to benefit you. And also keep in mind that, like I said, it does have the Next Island development team behind it. So I know I am pretty harsh when it comes to ancient Greece shares most of the time. Consider this my video giving the development team a pat on the back, saying if you guys will keep doing what you've been doing, if you will keep making the correct decisions and listening to the players, they do have the opportunity to be a very good, worthwhile share in-game. Doesn't mean I'm going to start buying them up tomorrow. Doesn't mean you should start buying them up tomorrow. Everybody has to do what they feel works best for them and what they believe in-game. Personally, I don't own a single share of Ancient Greece. However, that doesn't mean they don't have long-term potential. The question is how much. That's something I can't quantify. So big kudos to the Next Island development team. Big kudos to everything they've been doing. They continue to release new content. I continue to be stunned by some of the things they're doing, and I really think they're still moving in the right direction. So as long as they're doing that, I'm going to give them a pat on the back, because everybody knows I called them out for the bad behavior whenever they were having bad behavior. So if I'm going to do that, you deserve to be rewarded when you do something right too. I'm going to leave it right there for today. Sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. Be sure and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button, because there's always a hater out there hitting the dislike button. Also, be sure and head over to earnped.com, because when you earn, we earn. That is by far the best way you can support us. We weren't the first, nor are we the only place you can earn ped online. So when you support us and choose to support us, it means a lot. It really does. So we're going to leave it there. We will be back with more content for you later this week. Take care, Stevies.